All right, let's go to John in Schenectady, New York. John, you're next on the Sean Hannity Show. What's up, John?
Hey, son, you started out your show saying that negotiating with public workers is inherently dangerous because the government doesn't have any leg to stand on. It's unfair. Well, I wanted to say that the government seems to be doing a pretty good job of negotiating right now. And secondly, that whole excuse is a lie because the most expensive unions, the police and the firefighters, are the ones that are most difficult to rein in and the ones we need the most, the ones with the most leverage. And the governor hasn't done anything to restrict their benefits in this conflagration we're looking at.
Look at the reaction to this. The governor's trying to get his budget in balance and trying to keep everybody working at the same time. He doesn't want to lay people off, which I think is a noble thing to do. All he's arguing here is they have the right to negotiate higher salaries. What he's asking is, and I don't think it's unreasonable given the, for all the complaints that Barack Obama, that George Bush created this. All right, well, let's go back and look. This was all created by a Democratic legislature and a Democratic governor. And so they have this $3.6 billion shortfall, and now he has to clean up the mess. How often? Obama's had 2 years to blame Bush. He has to clean up Bush's mess, even though he made it far worse by accumulating record debt and deficits, promising stimulus would work. So in this case, what the governor's saying is, all right, the same as the private sector will be applied to the public sector. And as a result, this is what we see.
That's not true. In the private sector, people are allowed to unionize if they want to. He's saying you people that have already unionized aren't going to be allowed to do it anymore. The other thing that puts the lie to the whole thing is that these unionized
you don't want to listen to what I'm saying. No. Most people in the private sector, including myself, I help fund, I pay into my pension. I get a match from my employer, but I fund my own pension. I pay for my health care. As a matter of fact, I pay for health care. I'm a member of a union in New York.
I'm sorry, Sean. I'm not going to sit here and pretend you're a middle-class worker that has the same problems these teachers have.
John, I have had this my whole life. Now, in recent years, yes, I've made more money than I made before. But I am telling you, my entire life has been at this pay grade. My first years in radio were for free. Most of my adult years in my 20s and early 30s, I was in contracting. I worked in restaurants my whole life. Don't lecture me about not knowing what it's like to be middle class, because that was my whole life. Dropping out of college 3 times, paying my own way through it, going back to work so I could pay the tuition. So I really don't need to hear it. And even when I had no money in the bank and I was poor, I never thought I had the right to other people's money ever in my life. When I started in radio with very little, maybe $15,000, $20,000 to my name after I worked. No, well, the point is they're being paid by the public. They're being paid by the taxpayers. The taxpayers
now. Are they being paid? They're making $50,000 a year, Sean. That's not a lot of money to be babysitting other people's rugrats.
Well, you tell me other people's rugrats all day. Okay. Well,
would you do it for $50,000? I wouldn't do it.
Listen,
no way.
I have
That's
said
a hard job.
I think people that are teachers, firemen, policemen, and I was telling my fireman friends, look, I have a lot of friends that are firemen and policemen in New York. And I often have given them a hard time about, for example, firemen sometimes work 24-hour shifts, and if it's a slow night, they get rack time. They get to sleep. And I would give them unholy hell, but they would remind me that one night when they get called into a building that's on fire and they go up in that fire, their life is at risk, and we lose a lot of firefighters. They, for example, my friends that became firemen in their early 20s that are now retired, they were promised that they'd get paid X dollars, that they'd have a chance for promotion, and they'd be given their retirement. I'm not talking about taking away promises made to them. That was a contract. I am saying now when you're facing a $3.6 billion shortfall, you have to cut somewhere. And if I was the governor, if given the choice between laying some people off or saying that, all right, you're going to have to contribute a little to your health care, a little to your pension, just like the public sector, which, by the way, government officials nationally in most states end up making more money on average than the public sector worker. So I'm saying,
why not let the unions make that decision? If they make the wrong decision, the membership will vote them out.
Listen, the membership, I'm mad at unions too. They're going to lecture us on how much they care about rank and file, but take their money and spend it on political causes. I think it's outrageous.
They're allowed to vote their members out if they don't like the way the money is being spent.
No, the problem is there's more pressure being brought to bear on those guys than you have any idea. And secondly, yeah, you're right. They should vote some of these guys out.
Vote however you wanted.
Look, all I'm saying here, this push. Look, there is no room at this point. They either got to lay people off, or they're going to have to save money.
So let the union members make that choice. Don't take away their bargaining rights.
Well, I'm sorry, but they're not going to be able to bargain in the state of Wisconsin because the governor's going to win. That's what elections are about. The governor has a history of doing this.
Because he's a thug.
Okay, he's a thug. You can call him all the names you want, but I'm just telling you, this is the problem. As we watch what happens in states like Wisconsin, Ohio, and everywhere else, all over the place, and now we see what's happening nationally. And when you have, 49 million people that receive government assistance every year, once you find out it's unsustainable, once you see Social Security is bankrupt, once you see Medicare is bankrupt, Congress has promised the American people certain things that I can tell you financially, fiscally, it will never be able to fulfill unless you deal with entitlements, which is the bigger part of the budget, which is what the president punted on last week. America's going to become Greece. It's going to become France. And when austerity measures are put in place, what you see in Wisconsin is going to happen nationally. So you have adults that see what's on the horizon, that want to get America's budget in balance, state budgets in balance, and to do so, they're dealing with the real source of the problem. Even a Democratic governor in New York sees this. And if we don't do it now, we kick the can down the road, then I'm telling you, then what you see in Wisconsin is going to be nothing. You're going to see similar things that have happened in countries like France and Greece and elsewhere. As people begin to cut, at that point, the cuts will be made for everybody because you have no choice. I don't want to see that happen for anybody. I'd like to see everyone be able to keep their job. Let's deal with the problems that have already been created. Let's do it at a point where we can actually deal with them rather than see states, banging on the door of the federal government, begging for bailouts, et cetera. All right, I tried to help you there, John. I really don't have a problem with union rank and file. I love, good teachers are worth their weight in gold. Good policemen are worth their weight in gold. Good firefighters are worth their weight in gold. But at some point, we've got to examine, whether or not how much we can afford, how many people we can afford on staff. And you know what? States, cities, municipalities. Look, the county I live in Nassau County, basically has been taken over because they can't balance their budget. And I'm saying to the state of New York, don't bail out my county. Let it go under. And at that point, they're going to have to renegotiate. What you're missing in all of this is that all of this is precipitated by an unholy alliance between unions and the Democratic Party. The unions spend rank and file money. They get Democrats elected. They get sweetheart deals that are going to be paid for down the road. And unfortunately, when the price comes due and the bill comes in, we can't afford it.